Hey, everybody, and welcome to And Action Filmmaking Podcast. I think this is episode 62 now. Today, we're going to be talking all about the legend himself, Don Johnson. I'm here with my co host, as always, Mikey Messier, and we're going to dive into a little bit of a pop culture legend. I got a chance to direct Don Johnson not once, but twice. Learned something new each time, and it was a really great experience. So I'm looking forward to talking about my time on set with Don Johnson, aka Sonny Crockett, aka Nash Bridges.
Yeah, Tommy, he's had a great career, that's for sure. He's also the proud father of a great actress, Dakota Johnson. But Don's career is just immaculate. I mean, he did Miami Vice, which was really like the number one pop culture phenomenon show in the early to mid 80s. I think it ran from, I want to say 83 to 88, something like that. And he's done other great movies, some movies that I think people kind of look over, but something like Tin Cup, which is kind of a golf comedy with him and Kevin Costner, and I believe Cheech Moran's in that one. He's just had a phenomenal career, so it's fun to talk about him.
Yeah, I love him in Tarantino's Django. You're right; he does have a lot more to his bag than just Miami Vice. Real quick, let's talk a little bit about the kind of cultural impact of Miami Vice. Miami Vice is a show that came out a little bit before my time. I think when I was a kid, it was pretty much in reruns, but it had already made its mark on pop culture. And to this day, Michael Mann, of course, was behind that TV show. He was an executive producer on it, and then Michael Mann went on to make a revival film with Jamie Foxx and Colin Farrell. So Miami Vice has been kind of this franchise that's really just been around for a long time. What was so sexy and unique about the show was, a lot of people might make fun of it today if they were to see it because it is very 80s. I mean, you want to talk about a show that's kind of like a love letter to 1980s fast living lifestyles. It's Miami Vice. But Miami Vice was one of the first network TV shows to have more of a cinematic approach to how the production was done, meaning, the action, a lot of the violence, even a lot of the drama was a little bit more dialed up than people had been used to seeing in your standard episodic network TV show. These were almost like mini movies each episode. So they really went for it on the show. A lot of great actors got their start on this program. And I don't think the kids today realize just what a big deal Miami Vice was in terms of really capturing the 80s lifestyle, Miami, sex appeal, fast cars, fashion. Pretty incredible show.
Yeah, I mean, you had something like Hill Street Blues over on NBC, I believe, which was kind of gritty, and I think that took place in an East Coast city, maybe in New York or something like that. But Miami Vice was a lot more glamorous. The style that Sonny Crockett, Tubbs, they're wearing these kind of like really nice t-shirts over underneath a sport coat. The glamorous women and all types of things on that show. I want to say there was even a promotional tie-in to the song Smuggler's Blues. I think there was a tie-in with that, but yeah, Miami Vice was huge, and Don Johnson was the face of the company, so to speak.
Yeah, so Don obviously, that show really, really put him on the proverbial map. Probably one of the biggest stars to come out of the '80s. Don Johnson. To this day, I mean, he's a household name. But I mean, if this were 1988 and you said who, Don Johnson, you'd be talking about one of the biggest stars on the planet. So I got a chance to work with Don for the first time on a movie called Vault, and it was a really interesting experience because to me, again, I don't want anyone to take this the wrong way. I knew Don was a huge star, but again, it's like I was born in '84, and I believe Miami Vice went off the air in '89 or maybe '90. So like by the time that show went off the air, I missed the boat kind of.
Yeah.
So when I directed Don in Vault and when I found out that he was being cast in Vault, I was excited about it. And I don't want to take anything away from my level of excitement. But when I would tell people that were maybe 5, 10, even a whole generation of years ahead of me, or I should say, maybe behind me. No, ahead of me. They would be amazed that Don Johnson was in the show. You know, to them, if I said to someone maybe 10 or 15 years older than me at the time, "Oh, Don Johnson's in this movie," you would see sort of a different level of appreciation and excitement. I guess what I'm saying is people who lived in that era and got a chance to watch that destination programming every week when Miami Vice would come on, that was a name that you could drop and people knew who it was. You know, my whole career at that point, up until that point, for the most part, I had worked with stars that are incredibly talented, wonderful actors, but they weren't really household names to the point where, I couldn't say the person's name and immediately people would know who I'm talking about. I would have to do this dance where
Sure.
filmmakers out there know exactly what I'm talking about. But when you cast one of those sort of B or C list level actors and you're excited about it and they're great actors, they're great people, and you're like, oh, I got so and so. And then someone will kind of give you the blank face look. And then you have to say, they were in that movie, blah, blah, blah. So it's really frustrating and even kind of embarrassing for a filmmaker when you got to be all excited about a name that you just cast, and then you tell someone and they don't even know who the fuck you're talking about, and you have to reference a show that they were in,
Yeah.
or you have to do the other move, which is this, where you go, oh no, wait, hold on, and you pull up the picture and you say, this guy right here. You got to do that kind of a move. So Don was the first actor I would say that I worked with where I didn't have to play that game. I could kind of come out and just say, we cast Don Johnson, and everybody knew who that was.
Yeah, fame is an interesting thing, Tommy. I know that when I did the movie as an actor, Hard Luck, Louise Guzman's in that film, and everybody has seen a Louise Guzman movie, Boogie Nights, among others. But if you say the name Louise Guzman, 99 out of 100 people really aren't sure who you're talking about, maybe 85 out of 100. But if you show them the picture of Louise Guzman, they know exactly who he is. And along the same lines of what you're saying, Tommy, I played Sybil Shepherd's son in that movie. If I said Sybil Shepherd to someone, say in their 40s or older at the time, they know exactly who she was. She was on Moonlighting with Bruce Willis. She was in Taxi Driver with De Niro. But if you said Sybil Shepherd to someone who was 20 or 25 years old, they probably don't know who she is, unless they were watching the L Word at the time. But fame is an interesting thing. Um, but I would say this: talent supersedes fame, and I think Don Johnson and your film's Vault and the collective has come through for you with his talent, and he seems like a real pro.
He is, and you knew that, that right away when you work with Don. I got a fun story. The first time I really ever spoke to him on the phone, I'm working with, I'm working on Vault, got the script together, and our distributors wanted more Don Johnson in the movie, and they wanted more Chaz Palminteri in the movie. Both Don and Chaz play prominent characters, but they wanted more. They wanted an additional scene or two with Don and Chaz, because as you can imagine, when you're going to sell these movies and you're going to put together trailers and things like that, you want to make it appear as though your stars are in the movie as much as humanly possible. So really what it comes down to is we wrote a scene or two, and by we, I mean myself and B. Dolan, who co-wrote the movie with me. And we wrote these scenes, and listen, they weren't bad scenes, but I'll be honest with you, they weren't great scenes. They were
Okay.
the kind of scenes that, if you were to watch the movie in completion, you'd probably say, yeah, that probably could have been a deleted scene. They don't really push the story forward. They kind of, I guess you could say they enhance some of the points that we're trying to make, but they're not necessary. So Don gets these pages kind of last minute, probably like, a couple nights before we're shooting the scenes. And he looks at the pages, and I guess he was not thrilled with them.
Okay.
And I get a call from my producer basically saying, like, hey, Don wants to talk to you about these new pages. And I hadn't even talked to Don yet.
Sure.
So I said, okay, well, let's talk to him. Now at the time, I'm still kind of, I wouldn't say a rookie, but I've only directed a few movies, and they were all very small in comparison to Vault. Meaning, you could have made 10 of any of the movies that I made prior to Vault with the budget for Vault. It was
Gotcha.
that much bigger of a budget.
Leveled
So
up, as the kids say. Leveled up, as the kids say, right?
it was as leveled up as I could have possibly been at the time.
Yeah.
So there I am, ready to field a phone call with, I've talked to actors before. This is nothing new to me, but I've never really talked to I guess you could say, movie star at this point. A true like big old shining star like Don. So I pick up the call and I get it, and I basically say, "Hey Don, how are you? Tom here. I'm looking forward to making this movie." And he basically just, without skipping a beat, goes, "Hi Tom, Don Johnson. I got the new pages and I'm not doing them." And I go, "Okay." And I didn't know what to do, and I'm nervous, but I think quickly and I kind of shift gears and I say, "Well, Don, I'm really sorry to hear that you don't like the new pages, and I think that you'll find that I'm very flexible to work with, and I'm happy to hear some of your concerns and flesh them out with you and try to make that scene work for you and make the best scene we possibly can make." And that kind of, like, I definitely think that I wouldn't want to say backed him off. That's not, it wasn't an aggressive call. He was
Sure.
just voicing his opinion that, like, "Hey, I'm not a big fan of these new pages that you gave me." Sort of saying, in a way, and rightfully so, like, this isn't the script that I kind of signed on to do. You're sending me this scene now at the last minute. I've got to go prepare for it. And
Right.
frankly, I don't think it's that great of a scene. I don't know what you're trying to do here. And I basically explained to him, it's true what they say. Honesty is the best policy, and sometimes the truth shall set you free. And I basically explained to him, I just said, "Listen, Don, my producers had advised me to put together a couple of additional scenes because the distributors want as much Don Johnson in the movie as possible and as much Chaz Palminteri as they can get. And I figured this would be a nice opportunity to get another scene together." And, that kind of opened this great creative discussion between me and Don. And what could have been a headbutting moment where it's like, "No, you are doing this scene. Whatever." I could have defended the scene. I could have said, "Oh no, we have to because of this." But I kind of read the room, as the kids say, and I could, like, immediately tell, like, all right, you got to work with this guy. You got to kind of win him over in a sense here, and you want him to realize that. And it's true, guys. I am a very flexible guy. Like, if an actor is not really thrilled with these new pages, well, geez, I don't want them to go up there and do something that their heart's not, kind of into. So I had a great conversation with Don. We ended up tweaking the scene, and we ended up, you know, making it in such a way that both sides were happy. We got our additional scene in. Don was happy with the pages. Chaz, of course, was also in the scene, was happy with the pages. And it all was well in the world. But it was definitely a scary moment when the first time I ever spoke to him was,
Sure.
"Hey, I got the new pages and I'm not doing them."
Yeah, man, I haven't heard that story before. That's pretty intense. And I believe, I remember Don Johnson fondly in that film as the Frenchman. I don't remember his character's actual name, but I remember the nickname was the Frenchman. And I remember a scene with him, Chaz, and a mouse. I don't think this is what you're talking about. I would assume that scene was already in the script, but this is a pretty intense story, and I think he did a nice job. I don't want to. I think of the term verbal jujitsu, like you kind of use your opponent's aggression as a counter, and you did the right thing, Tommy. You were upfront with the guy. In a way, it's flat. It should be flattering to him that, hey, the distributors think that more Don Johnson is going to make this movie better or more marketable. So he can't take offense to that. And as a guy that was probably, I would think you were in your mid 30s at that time, going up against or working with a legend like Don, you don't want to go up against him. You want to work with him, not against him. So I think you handled it pretty well, very well. And I think it worked out for the best. And credit to Don that he didn't, he expressed himself. He's kind of earned that right through his success in the filmmaking world. He's earned the right to speak his mind, and you guys were able to come to a creative moving forward, so to speak. So that's really cool.
Yeah, you're absolutely right in the sense that, listen, I thought of it as kind of a nice thing in the sense that a lot of actors probably would have just kind of hemmed and hawed and done the scene and phoned it in, and that would have been that. And okay, you got your extra scene, great. But because Don expressed some issues that he had with the dialogue itself, we were able to actually go in and make a better scene. So again, I don't want this story to come off like Don was complaining to me. That wasn't it. He was
Right.
actually trying to make the project better, and I respect that because a lot of veterans kind of, I don't want to say they don't care because it's not fair to generalize, but they're just kind of, okay, I'm going to show up. I'm going to speak the words you would like me to speak. I'm going to cash my check, and then I'm going to move on to the next rodeo. Whereas I feel like Don felt as though, no, I really like this character. I really like the script. I really like the script that you guys kind of wrote, and I don't want to deviate from it. What you had was great. We don't need to do anything else. There's that old phrase that we've heard a million times, and I feel like it's become more popular over the last few years, but less really is more, with a lot of creative facets in life.
Sure.
You don't need a 6-page scene when a 3-page scene will do sometimes. So I think that's kind of what I learned from that whole experience. Working with Don on Vault was great. There was a heightened level of excitement whenever Don was on set. And he was very gracious too with the whole aspect of, I mean, again, we're talking about a guy who was on a show that had merchandise and a soundtrack that's on vinyl that you can go get. I mean, like, Don was literally like getting approached by fans on the street to sign things. And even, sometimes just random people would like seek him out and find, like, it's amazing with celebrities. Celebrity really is, like Mike said earlier, it's an amazing thing. Uh, just hearing the rumors that Don Johnson was in downtown Providence led to dozens, I'm not joking, dozens of these like autograph collectors that were kind of uh shadowing the set and kind of, they were on the
Right.
peripheral hanging back by the security barriers, just dying for a chance to maybe hand on their Miami Vice merch and get him to sign it. So Don was pretty gracious with all the fans and appreciative of the adulation. And I think that he was just in a really great place. And Don was only here for a few days on that movie, but the work that he did was great. And then I remember, um, it's kind of funny too. Like, another kind of cool thing about Don was, I remember he worked a very short final day. His final
Okay.
day was not long. And we did that so that he could have an easier pace, so that he didn't have to shoot like 20 scenes a day for 2 days. We would give him that extra third day. And then I remember we were really cooking through it. We were cranking. I can't remember if it was he wanted to take an earlier flight or there was something that he wanted to go do. Like, he wanted to leave a little early that day because he only had the one scene. And I remembered kind of just looking at him, and he came up to me and he was like, "This is pretty light." And don't quote me on this, but he said something along the lines of, "Am I going to be out of here by lunch?" And I looked at him and I said, "Oh, you're going to be out of here way before lunch." And he was just like, he smiled, he patted me on the shoulder, and he was like, "Good deal, great, all right, let's do it." So again, these are the little things that when you're an actor like Don, you want to be treated a certain way because, like Mike said, like, you've earned that level of respect. And he knows that, like, all right, this is literally a 1-page scene. I've got 3 lines of dialogue, and then you've got me hanging up the phone and putting my jacket on and leaving the office. Like, a guy like Don who's been doing this for 50 years, he just knows by looking at the sides that day, saying, all right, this is going to be a light day's work. And I think he just wanted my reassurance that, again, back to less is more. You never know. I could have made a meal out of that 1-page scene. I could have brought a jib in, and I could have shot it
Sure.
8 different ways, and I could have been using every toy in the toy box to try and create this overly cinematic moment. When in reality, it was just a guy on the phone saying like 3 lines of dialogue. It didn't need to be anything crazy because less is more. So that was a scene where Don was trying to get a gauge on the day, see what the order of operations for the day were going to be like. And I didn't bullshit him. I just told him flat out, basically he had asked me, and you can always tell a veteran actor because they're just going to come out and ask you, what's your coverage like on this scene? There's a
Right.
phrase that you don't hear very often from actors, and that's kind of how I can kind of tell like a newer actor who's kind of just gotten into this and would never dare to even ask what kind of coverage that we're in, or a veteran who's just like, all right, what are you going to do? Like a single, a master, and like you're going to do that push in on the dolly? Yeah. Okay, cool. So Don has a great awareness of cinema and how films are made. So he speaks that language. So it's kind of fun. I was able to just kind of tell him like, no, don't worry, we're going to be done way before lunch and you'll be on your way.
Yeah, and the word that comes to mind with some of these anecdotes and recollections today, Tommy, not just with that one, but the word compromise comes to mind, and in a positive sense. A lot of times when you think of creative compromise, there's a negative uh, sentiment with that, but with this, it's like you know these distributors and the story a few minutes ago. The distributors wanted more Don Johnson. You and your screenwriting partner put together a scene. The actual Don Johnson didn't approve of the scene, didn't understand it, didn't like it. You told him the truth about what you were up against or what you were dealing with, and you guys compromised by kind of rewriting the scene together as a team. And I think that's one thing, buddy, that I kind of learned from this too is, as a quote artist quote, you want to kind of do things your way all the time. You write something, you want it to be exactly what you wrote, but a lot of times when you're dealing with other people's money in projects, you don't have the ability or the swag, so to speak, to tell other people that everything you want is what should be presented. So you've got to make these compromises and hopefully for the better. And these are some of the landmines that you face as a filmmaker, right?
Yeah, and the reality is I needed to be done with that scene long before lunch because I'm shooting an entire pretty big ambitious script in only 18 days. So the reality is, Don was probably used to being on bigger movies when, yeah, maybe we will spend a whole day on just a page of dialogue. Maybe this is going to take us 10, 12 hours to do, and maybe you'll be here all day. So, again, just shows Don's experience. Don played a really cool character in this movie. He played Jerry Ouimet, the Frenchman. And Ouimet was a very fashionable guy who wore lots of really, flashy suits and cool clothing. For example, there's a scene where he's in jail and even in prison, he's got this really kind of suave looking bathrobe that he wears in jail. And even his jail cell's all tricked out. He's got a TV set, he's got a record player, he's got a bar in his prison cell. So it's a really fun character and really great working with Don. And I'll tell you that first day actually on set with him, I remember being a little pensive, a little nervous, approaching Don and kind of giving him a note or two. And the truth is, man, this is a fact. On the set of Vault, I think I gave Don maybe one note, maybe two notes, because he was so dialed in and so prepared. And just, I love everything he did. And that was the thing about Don, like, yes, it was intimidating to direct a veteran with so much experience like that. And yeah, a couple times I kind of came up to him and probably like peckishly or nervously kind of was like, do you think maybe that line at the end you could emphasize a little more? Like, the one or two times that I did give him the littlest bit of direction, it was done in such a way where I was almost like, because again, still kind of a new filmmaker. I'm almost like, well, it'd be cool if you did this, but you don't have to if you don't want to. But it'd be cool if you did because I like it. But you're great. You know everything that you're doing, and yeah, let me just, you're great. But you still want to, there are still certain, as an artist, things that you'll hear that you say, "Ooh, I'd like this to be just a little different." So basically, I remember Don kind of like looking at me after I gave him his first direction. He was kind of just like, it's like grizzled, kind of cool guy look, which he just does effortlessly. And he was like, okay. And I'm like, okay. And I do the Homer Simpson in the bushes, like back to my director's chair. And I'm like, all right. And he did the scene and crushed it. And let me tell you, I can't emphasize enough. I've worked with some really talented stars that you'd be like, what? And they don't know their shit. Like you get to set, their fucking scripts out. They're having to like memorize everything like right before they go. Sometimes they're having you feed the lines to them through an earpiece. None of that with Don. Don was one of the most prepared actors I've ever worked with. He was off book to the point where he knew your line, he knew his lines, your lines, and everybody else's lines.
Sure.
And also just kind of without having to even give direction, he naturally, let's say he does it 2 or 3 times, 2 or 3 takes, he's going to naturally vary his performance a little bit each time. He just the cerebral nature of his game is so high where he's like, it's almost like, yeah, you don't really need to direct me. I'm just going to give you 3 different versions of this line. You'll find one that you like. Again, I'm not saying that was his attitude, but like it really is. You kind of can be on autopilot when you're directing a guy like Don Johnson. Real quick, let me check in with everybody and say what's up. Stephen E., it's good to see you, brother. We're talking Miami Vice. I know you like your 80s shows, so we're right in the wheelhouse. Charlie Short Films, what's up, brother? Good to see you today on this fine Tuesday. Ariana, what's shaking, Ariana? Hello, hello, hello. And of course, we've got our good friend Scott's with us today. What's up, Scott? How you doing, brother?
Scott, the topic suggester. Is that his
Yes,
nickname?
great topic from Scott. And Steven says, I got that same shirt. Well, brother, great minds do, in fact, dress alike in this case.
Sure.
Charlie says, less is always more when you are an indie, in my case. Keep pushing the creative boundaries. That's right. And, you know, that's a good point. Just to piggyback onto that, Charlie. When you try to do too much on a small budget, you're almost inevitably going to come up short. So it's kind of like less is more protects us as artists from, you know, as an artist, we're always going to feel like we can do more than we really can do. You know, it's almost like the nature of the fighter who's in the boxing ring. It's like, well, he's not going to quit. The towel has to be thrown in for him because he's programmed to fight until he gets knocked out. But that's not always the best thing to do. So that's why less is more. It's kind of like as an artist, you're going to be like, yeah, and then the spaceships will come in, and then the helicopter lands, and then we'll have the CGI laser fight take place. But whoa, maybe you can't really accomplish that stuff. Maybe you should think of a creative way to pare it back and have more with your less in that sense. So yeah, it's been really fun chatting about Vault. We're going to do a deep dive on Vault. If you guys haven't already, I just want to remind you to go over and click that subscribe button if you're watching along as we tell these tales from the movie sets. Hit that subscribe, and got a lot of fun stuff coming up that we're going to be talking about a little bit later on the show after we chat Don.
I think I was in Tommy. I think I was on set for you for Vault for a day in the prison scenes, and I believe both Chad and Don Johnson walked in at separate times, and both of these guys, but I'd say maybe even especially Don had a real star presence to them. You know, like Don kind of walks in. He had maybe 1 or 2 people with him, but he's dressed immaculately. His hair looks great, and he just looks like a movie star. And I mean, he is obviously. So it's just it's kind of cool that guys like that are making movies, and you got a chance to work with him because he has that star presence at all times.
Yeah, we've heard it many times. You know, some people call it the it factor.
Sure.
You know, Don just has that it factor where, like you said, man, I mean, you could dump him off in the middle of Iowa on some main street and he could just walk down the street, and you could have never seen Miami Vice. You could have never seen one of his movies, but you'd look at that guy and you'd say, something about that guy. You know, he's got this like star quality that just kind of exudes. It permeates his through the body. There's an aura to him. So Don's a very cool guy, and I got a chance. I remember on Vault. Quick story for you. I'm sure Don wouldn't mind me sharing this with you. But obviously, Vault was about La Cosa Nostra, Italian American gangsters, organized crime. And Don made a movie about cops chasing bad guys in 80s Miami, Florida, which was kind of like the Wild West. There are so many great documentaries out there. If I could give a quick recommendation, if you've never seen Cocaine Cowboys, that's a great documentary that kind of gets into just like what a hotbed of crime and craziness Miami, Florida was in the 80s. The drug lords literally ran the city, and that city was built on cocaine money. I mean, it's no joke. Like all of the high rises in downtown Miami,
Right.
all cocaine money. That was all somehow, some way laundered drug money that really built that city up. So that's kind of what the whole Miami Vice show is about. So obviously, you know, we're breaking bread, we're having a lunch, and Don kind of candidly tells us, "Oh man, in the '80s when we would go to the nightclubs." Again, I'm just trying to tell you people like how popular Don Johnson was in the 1980s. He's like, we would go to the nightclubs, and a lot of the nightclubs were owned by these kind of wise guy types. And Don, with a smile on his face, was like, "Oh man, they would always invite me over. I'd invite me to the table. They would give us champagne. They would take care of us, hook us up with whatever we needed, you know, drinks, whatever, VIP service. They were always such nice guys. They were big fans. They were really big fans." He's like, "But we always knew, like, you know who that guy is," kind of stuff. So it's kind of fun
Right.
because, you know, obviously all these gangsters would have like legitimate businesses as a front, and a lot of their legitimate businesses would be these nightclubs. So I'm not, again, please don't take this the wrong way. I'm not saying Don was an associate of any kind with
No,
these
I get it.
guys, but just by going to nightclubs in Miami in the 80s and being a celebrity, you're going to rub shoulders with some unsavory characters. But the weird thing about Miami is the unsavory characters are running the show. They're the people that own the businesses. They're the in politics. So Don had a little bit of experience, real life experience dealing with some of these characters. So I think that's why he played the part so well.
Yeah, it's funny, Tommy. Our country and maybe the whole world has an interesting relationship with, the mafia, the mob, bad guys, the underworld. I mean, we're disgusted by them and some of their tactics, but at the same time, we're all kind of hypnotized and entranced and fascinated with some of the themes of loyalty or doing things the way that you want to do. I mean, I think a Scarface, Al Pacino, has become basically a hero of sorts to a lot of folks, as far as like pulling yourself up by the bootstraps. But yet, some of the tactics these individuals use in real life are pretty unseemly. But I mean, I think Don was pretty honest with you and just told you what things were like at that time.
Yeah, he was. And, you know, I think what it is, and we could do a whole show on the gangster genre, but people love the gangster genre because gangsters do things that we wish we could do, but we know that we can't because there are things like laws and jails and things like that that will keep us away. But yeah,
Sure.
who wouldn't want to just kind of call their own shots and be protected by their people? So yeah, lots of great stories that I got to hear from Don just about what it was like being that big of a star in 1980s Miami. Pretty special stuff. So, as a lot of movies, as all movies do, this one came to an end. Vault came to an end, and that was it. And I thought that I don't want to say I thought I'd never work with Don again, but you know, getting a chance to work with that high caliber of an actor. I mean, repeating that again doesn't happen very often. I mean, aside from the Martin Scorsese, Leonardo DiCaprio relationships, aside from the, you know, Scorsese De Niro relationships, and you know, every director's got their go-to actor for the most part on some level. But really, that's rare. It's a rare
Sure.
thing to kind of repeat to direct an actor of the caliber of a Don more than once. Not a lot of guys get to do that. Well, cut to last year. It's right around this time, and I'm about to direct a movie called The Collective, which just came out and is now available on Amazon Prime. It was the eighth ranked movie streaming worldwide just a couple weeks ago, so check that
It was
out.
the third
Uh,
ranked, I heard, buddy. I thought it was the third ranked.
it did get all the way up to third.
All right.
So yeah, so I'm making this movie, and I find out through my producer Richard Switzer that Don Johnson has just been cast to play one of the main characters that kind of sets up the whole show. So I was very excited. I was a little nervous because I wasn't sure how it went, you know, because that's the thing, man, especially when you're a young director, you know, you work with a movie star like that. I think it went well. We shook hands, we took a picture after. I
Sure.
guess it was good, but you never know how they really feel about the situation and how it all went down. Um, so I was excited to see like what it would be like. Honestly, there was a part of me that, again, I'm not trying to make Don sound like this big movie star guy that like, oh, he wouldn't care about the little people. But I didn't even think he would remember me, to be honest with you. I mean, there was a good probably 4-year gap between when we shot Vault and when I shot Collective. And in that 4 years, a lot happens. And here's the thing, I only make a movie, maybe 2 movies a year if I'm lucky. Don's making probably 5 or 10 movies a year and then doing TV and then making appearances. So he comes in contact with a lot more people than I do. So obviously, I'm going to remember the time I worked with Don, but will Don remember the time that he worked with me? And that was kind of the question. Um, and then, sure enough, day one on the set of The Collective happens. And I see him, and there he is. And it's all hugs and good times. And he remembered me, big old handshake. And it was really cool. It was cool to see that, and now look, I don't know. Maybe it was as simple as his agent was just like, oh, hey, you've worked with this guy before. Who knows? But to me, he seemed to have a lasting memory of the set of Vault. We talked a little bit about the movie. We talked a little bit about Providence, Rhode Island, and we just caught up. And let me tell you, man, like getting a chance to have that 10-minute catch up before the collective, boy, did that make it a lot easier of a process for me to work with Don for the next 2 or 3 days. It was almost like, okay, we get that icebreaker out of the way. We're all friends here, as they say. Let's make a really good movie. And I loved working with Don on that film, man. I mean, Don added a lot to it. Don is, again, he's been doing this for 5 decades. So almost anything that we could encounter on the set of The Collective, Don has encountered, whether it's a problem, whether it's an issue, concern, technical, whatever. Don's been through it 100 times and then some. So it's great working with a veteran like that. Also, here's what I learned from Don on this film. We talked about the clothing situation. Don was very adamant about what kind of suit he wore in this film in terms
Okay.
of like the make and mark. And I'm not going to give away what kind it was. It might have been one of the fine Italian suit makers. Could have been Armani, could have been Gucci. I don't know. You decide. My point is, I'm not going to advertise for them. But the fact is, it was a very high end suit that probably cost about as much as some of your cars that you drive. It was a very expensive suit,
Sure.
but Don knew that it was going to fit a certain way and he was going to look a certain way and that it was going to add to this character. And it just adds this level of fill in the blank for classes up the entire character by wearing this suit. And the cool thing about Don is, once production was kind of like trying to figure out how they're going to get the suit and, if it works in the budget or not, right? Because at the end of the day, it's all about, well, is that in your budget? I don't know. It's an expensive suit. Don actually had a relationship with the clothing manufacturer at a corporate level and was able to pull a couple strings and get the suit for a song. Like it was, I don't want to say nothing, but again, the fact that the clothing company quickly realized, oh wait, a star like Don wearing one of our suits in a movie, that's not such a bad trade-off for a little bit of free advertisement. Okay, let's work on this. Let's get him this suit. So Don was kind of instrumental in leveling up his wardrobe in this movie by making a couple calls and getting like I said, a very prominent clothing designer to come in and give us a really nice deal on this suit.
Yeah, that shows his professionalism, and he knows that he wants to look good in the movie. He wants to look good in every movie that he does, and if he's able to pick up that phone and use the power of his presence to accomplish that deal, then that helps you as a filmmaker. So give him credit for that. And all these stories kind of just illustrate that this guy is a thinking man's actor. He's a professional. He wants what's best for himself. He wants what's best for the movies and the people that he's involved professionally with. And as far as him remembering you or not, Tommy, I'd say that if you think about all the talk shows that he was on, his whole career, you know, the Tonight Show, he's probably on the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, Letterman, Leno, all these guys. Think about all the different sets he's been on, all the award shows he's been to. I believe he was married to Melanie Griffith. That's who he had Dakota Johnson with. That's the mother of her. Think about all these people that he's met, thousands and thousands and thousands of people. So I think his ability to remember faces and names and experiences probably have strengthened with time. You know what I mean? Like if you just have that muscle memory where every year of his career he's met a dozen people here, 100 people here, you know, 50 people, the press. I mean, everybody, and so co-stars. He probably just has a magnificent recall ability to remember people and treat them with respect.
And I also am very unforgettable. Let's be honest.
Yeah, of course, buddy. I mean, it reminds me of
That
that
was,
story
a
about the
joke.
suit. No, it's true, buddy. You're a good guy. Avalonia Festival has its own T-shirt out now. I know Stephen E's looking forward to getting one for himself. Um, Tommy, let me ask you this: working with Don the second time in the collective, as far as the actual director actor relationship, I know that the kind of the personal friendship was cemented, but was there any nuances that were increased or a little bit easier the second time around? Or
Yeah, 100%. You know, I had told you that I was a little pensive in giving him direction in the first movie, you know, kind of maybe mousing my way over to him and standing like this.
in awe, yeah.
Sir, may I suggest something? Whereas in the collective, again, we had a really nice, like, it wasn't long, but a nice 10-minute BS session, as they say, just bullshitting, you know, shooting the breeze. And I think that really, like, opened up the dialogue, and it really made it so that, you know, I was able to, we did a lot of cool things. You know, Don has a scar in this movie. There's like this really long scar. We just wanted to kind of be like, ooh, this guy's been into some shit, but we don't quite know what.
Sure.
Give him a little character. So it was just fun to like work with him on that. Like once we kind of broke the ice, it was easier to be like, oh, we were thinking of Scar. What do you think about this? And I remember we did it, and we looked at it, and we're like, it's gonna be a little longer. Yeah, let's make it bigger. You know, so just like we get to play. So yeah, I guess you could just say the ice was very much broken, and it was much more relaxed. And we had a lot of laughs, man. You know, Don made me laugh. I made him laugh a couple times, and that's always nice when people are, you know, you don't want a bunch of idiots running around set playing fucking jokes on each other all day. But a good bit of laughter can make some of those 12, 13-hour days go by a little quicker and a little smoother. And it shows the people around that, okay, this is a friendly environment. I can let my guard down a little bit here and in a positive way, still get my job done, but you know, it's not so goddamn stuffy. You know, some people run such a fucking stuffy set, and you
Yeah.
say to yourself, like, guys, we're not in an OR. We're not doing a goddamn heart transplant today. All right.
Right.
We're making a fucking movie. Lighten up.
Well, that sounds good. Do you
Pop
think?
a Red Bull for the working man.
Yeah, pop one open. You know, I get a little Mike's life hacks, Tommy. You know, if you say you get a cup of water, and we both sit at these desks where there's computers and hard drives and these things that we don't want to get water into, right?
Hazardous.
I've discovered that if you take a roll of electrical tape, you put your beverage in there, buddy, and then you put
Mike,
it on the
it's
flat
brilliant.
surface.
Brother,
Thank
I've
you.
done this before. I'm not saying that, you know, well, great minds think alike. I've done the tape cup holder. It's a
Yeah,
desk cup holder. No, it's brilliant. And your shit doesn't get knocked down as easy. Like it would
right,
take a real, that's what it is. You're probably saying, well, why the fuck would you stick it in the tape dispenser? Because it's
right.
a lot harder to elbow or just knock down that bad boy if it's locked in. Tape dispenser desk cup holders now available at MikeMessier.com.
Yeah,
You get yourself a bundle, Mike. You got to start bundling your artwork. You get
right. The
a
artwork.
painting, a T-shirt, and a desk cup holder, all for the low price of $29.99, and that can be paid in 3 monthly installments. All right, so Scott has a question. Well, actually, Ariana has a question. She says, "Who are you?" I'm Batman.
I think she was
God,
referencing the stuff with Don when he you're wondering if he remembered you. I think that's what she's referencing.
oh yeah, yeah. No, there was a good chance that Don. I'd be like, "Hey, Don, what's up? It's so great to work with you." He'd be like, who are you? Do I know you?
Right.
That's what I thought was going to happen. What was Don like in terms of offering advice to co-stars who didn't have as much experience? Don was not super heavy-handed in offering advice to co-stars. There was there was a couple of scenes. Here's the deal. In this film, he was mostly working one-on-one with Lucas Till, who's a super talented actor. So I think it came down to more just like them riffing together. It was less
Right.
about advice on like, what to do or how to do it, and more about just like the timing. Kind of like, all right, how are we going to pull this one off together? So again, he wasn't one of these guys like who was um, going around, coaching or dropping life lessons on people, or even like experience of, oh, when I would do this, I would do it like that. Um, but I think just, like, well, here's an example of something that I really appreciated. And it's sad that this is considered an old school quality because it really shouldn't be. Everybody should do this if you want to be an actor. But Don was very adamant about rehearsal. He really wanted to rehearse a lot. Um, you know, and I know a lot of people might not quite. Everyone's got a different concept of what rehearsal is, right?
Sure.
A lot of times when we think rehearsal, like when I first got into the business, I thought rehearsal was, oh, what do you guys like? Go to like a rehearsal hall and you run the scenes a bunch of times for like a day. And yes, that is a form of rehearsing. But in a movie, rehearsal is usually just, okay, we're all in position. We're going to shoot the scene in about 5 minutes. Let's run a quick rehearsal. And you'll literally just rehearse the scene, just the cameras won't be rolling. Some actors are, we don't really need to rehearse. Let's just shoot it. Shoot the rehearsal.
Mm,
Don really wanted to rehearse a couple times and get all the beats and the timing down perfectly. And then we shot the scene. And a lot of times people might bitch and moan about multiple rehearsals because it's eaten into your day, right? We're not shooting anything. We're just rehearsing. Wow, what? But the
right.
truth is, if you rehearse a scene 3, 4 times, you're probably gonna get it on maybe the second take, maybe even the first take. So I really liked his rehearsal process and the fact that it gets the actors kind of in tune with what they're going to be doing, and it gets the crew in tune with where all the people are going to be blocked out and where everyone's movements are. So Don was all about the rehearsal time, and I really appreciate that aspect of him.
Hey, Tommy, rehearsal? We talking about rehearsal? Practice? We're talking about
Practice?
practice?
Talking about practice?
Rehearsal? We're
Allen
talking about
Iverson.
rehearsal? Not this
Allen
movie that I
Iverson.
love, not this film industry that I love, but rehearsal?
No, Don was all about it. And then, just to wind things down, like another really kind of a fun moment on that set was, there was a scene towards the end of the day. Oh, this is kind of a funny story. One
Sure.
one day his call time was like, it was early, man. We were shooting for certain reasons due to light. We needed to start our day like 5 a.m. call time. And the location was approximately 30 minutes from where everyone's hotel was, 45 minutes. So it was going to be a you're getting up in the middle of the night kind of a thing. Like, your wake up time's probably 3:30, something like that. So I remember Don called me and he was kind of like, Tommy, uh, this 4:30 a.m. pickup. Uh, that's the middle of the night. He's like, that's the middle of the night. He's like, I got my process. I like to do my yoga in the morning. I like to chill. I got a process. He's like, do you really need me there at that time? Like, are you really going to be ready for me at 4:30 in the morning or 5 in the morning? And I get it, man. He's been doing this for a million years, like, do you know how many times he's probably been called to set at 5 a.m.? He goes through the works, meaning if you don't know, going through the works, that means hair, makeup, wardrobe, ready to go, ready on set, 100%. Don will get through the works in, half hour, an hour. Now it's 6 a.m. and they probably don't use him until 8 or 9 a.m. And he probably wants to go insane because it's like, what did you call me in the middle of the night for if you're not even going to use me until 8 or 9 a.m.? So he just wanted to clarify, like, wait, so if I get there at this time, you guys are going to be ready. And I got
Right.
nervous, and he said, so you guys are gonna be ready if I get there at 5 a.m. You're gonna be ready to shoot. And I knew we weren't gonna be ready, no matter how hard we tried. And I just said, you're right, Don. We're not gonna be ready. I said, I'll tell you what, Don. I was like, can I give you, and I didn't want to say a full hour. There was something about me. I did this line where I was like, look, man, I would love to give you, I would love to give you more time, but I want to give you a little bit. Can you do, what about 45 minutes? Can I extend your 45-minute, you do the pickup 45 minutes later? How about that? And he was very happy with that. And he basically said, I really appreciate that. That's going to make a big difference. And, again, I'm paraphrasing, but I think he said, like, oh, good. Now I can do my yoga. I can wake up and do my yoga or whatever it was that he does before he goes to set. So I bought him just enough time. And then I remember I had to call the AD, the first assistant director who schedules the movie. And I was afraid he was going to be pissed at me because I basically just undermined his scheduling. And I said, hey, I just want you to know, I talked to Don, and he's not coming in at 5. He'll be there at 5:45, and we'll be fine because by the time we load into this location, get all of our shit together, it's going to be fucking 6 a.m. And let's put it this way, Don is going to be ready before we're ready. And I don't want
Right.
that to happen. Like I didn't want Don to have to get up literally the middle of the night. He would have had to get up at 3:30 in the morning to get there at this time to just sit around at a trailer. I wasn't going to do that. So I pushed his call time. He was happy. And as predicted, once we arrived on set and once Don showed up, we were still putting things together to get our shit ready to shoot that day. So it's not like we didn't ruin the day by having him show up later. Sometimes certain ADs can get a little nervous, and I don't blame them. It's
Sure.
that age old, like if you're going to book talent, like bring him in on the first flight in the morning because the other flights might get delayed. It's always just a precaution. You want your number 1, number 2 on the call sheet. You want them there early because there could be delays. And if they're not there, you're really screwed. There are things that you can shoot around, but if you
Yeah.
don't have your star, you kind of stuck. So that was a case where we negotiated a little bit for a later wake up time, and it went a long way. So I guess the advice there or the lesson there is, yes, there's a way of doing business on a movie set when it's like, oh, you should have the actors there 2 hours before the official shooting call. And it's like, yeah, maybe that's the rule in your geeky little AD scheduling book. But when you're dealing with a star like Don Johnson, you give them the benefit of the doubt and you give them a little extra time to get prepared on their end. And you trust the fact that they're a veteran star who's been doing this for 5 decades and that they're going to be able to put a suit on, comb their hair, and go through makeup in a timely manner and get onto set and ready to shoot.
And just the practicalities of it, Tommy, like not to, be gender specific, but men traditionally take less time to get ready, whether it's in real life or on a film set, because there's less considerations with
Might get
hair
not
and
get a
makeup.
lot. Send your hate mail to MikeMessier.com.
Hashtag me, hashtag Mike Messier. But, and also, Don's been around the block long enough. He kind of knows what he needs to do in terms of his look and everything. And who knows, maybe the 45 minutes of extra sleep or his cup of coffee or his yoga meditation helps him look better and act better so that you actually, get things accomplished quicker. And then I think the other aspect of that, Tommy, is that, you've been doing this for a while at this point, and you kind of know your own palette as far as your crew members, as far as the time it realistically takes. People have, well, we'll load in 15 minutes. Well, it's actually an hour and 15 minutes or whatever it is. You kind of know by this point what you're dealing with and the reality of the situation, not the best case scenario hypotheticals that we all like to think about.
Yeah, I think that I would have had some serious egg on my face had I said, no, Don, we need you there at that time. And yes, we will be fully ready to shoot by the time you go through the works, because I would have looked like a big idiot because he would have been sitting and waiting in his trailer for an hour and a half. And
Yeah.
now I would have had a potentially cranky actor who's like, buddy, what the fuck did you wake me up in the middle of the night for if we're not even ready to shoot? So that was fun. And then at the end of the day, we shot our final scene that day, and that was Don's last day on the collective. And I remember this is a really funny line that Don hit me with. But I said to him something along the lines of, All right, yeah. Well, we're gonna just get an insert for that, and I was talking about a close up on something that he wanted that I wanted, and he mentioned some term that I really thought was cool, and I was like, oh, I like that. I like that term. was like, I really appreciate working with you today, Don. It was really fun, and I really learned something. And then he looked at me and he goes, something? You only learned something? And I go, I learned many things. I learned a bounty of things from you, and I appreciate all that you've done. Thank you very much, Don. And again, he was busting my balls when he said, something? You only learned something from me? And I was like, lots of things, tons and tons of things that I learned.
I can do a whole podcast about what I learned from you, Don, and here
Yeah,
it
someday I'm
is.
going to talk about you for 45 minutes and tell all the things that I learned.
Well, he's had an outstanding career, Tommy. I don't know if you want to reflect on some of his projects before he worked with you. I mean, I
No, I
mentioned,
don't. I really don't. This show is all about my experience with him, and if anybody wants to know about Don Johnson, I mean, you can go look him up on IMDb. I mean, like Mike said, he's a legend. But I what I love about this show is I like just talking about my experiences with them and what I've gotten to do and their impact on pop culture. And the fact is, though, I did learn a lot from working with Don. And sometimes what a filmmaker can take from a situation, it's not always going to be, as they say, X's and O's. It's not all about the playbook. It's not always
right.
about what kind of lens should I have on or what kind of angle do I need for this shot. A big portion of being a good director and directing actors is the interpersonal aspect of it. The sort of riding that bucking bronco and getting the actor to feel comfortable and in line with your vision and ready to make a good movie. And a lot of that, I'll tell you, and I don't mean to be sort of dismissive of film school, but these are all things that you could never learn this in a book, in school. You can only learn this by having experience dealing with a really high-end actor that is going to present you with just a lot of different elements to the equation that you've never worked with before, and you can only experience that by doing it. And I'm very fortunate to have learned from a star like Don Johnson and have a guy like that on my movie sets, and walk out of there without a call to the agent. I'm saying, who is Tommy DeNucci? I don't ever want to work with him again in my life. Hang up. So that didn't happen. It's all good. I would love to get a chance to work with Don for the third time. Hat trick with Don Johnson would be really fun. So really appreciate it, guys. I could probably dig up a few more stories if I really think, but the truth is, those are the best ones. If I come up with something later, we can always add it to the old vault episode. Or, but I do want to take a minute to tell you guys about something that I've got going on. I just announced today, October 7th, right here in Rhode Island, on Main Street in East Greenwich. I'm going to be giving a film seminar. I'm calling it the Fall Film Camp, and it's basically a one-day film camp that's opened up to mainly adults. It's going to be PG-13 and at times maybe rated R. I can drop an occasional F-bomb. We all know that. But the reality is I'll be getting into acting, writing, and directing. It's basically like a 3-hour course where I'm going to break down all the secrets and all of the information that I've learned from doing this for more years than I'd care to admit. But I've directed 10 feature films here in Rhode Island. I've learned an awful lot. Some of you folks who listen to And Action have been a part of some of this, in the sense that I plan on telling a lot of real life stories that I've kind of dealt with, and some of the experience that I've learned. Tickets are only $25, and they're available on the Odeum Theater website, or you could get them at the box office. There's also a VIP ticket available, where that's $50, and VIPs will actually get to spend a little extra time with me at the end of the show for a one-on-one consultation, where if you're an actor, you can give me your headshot. We can talk strategy. I can tell you some of my tips and advice for how to maybe become a little more castable. If you're a director, I'm happy to hear your pitch. You got a film you want to pitch to me, Who knows? Maybe we can get some synergies going together. So this is all about, it's a very entry level kind of a presentation. However, I think people, even with a great deal of film experience, will get something out of it. Again, that's happening October 7th. That's a Saturday at 1 p.m. I'm going to be up there doing my thing for about 3 hours. Just kind of, like I said, almost an hour on acting, an hour on writing, and an hour on directing and producing. And we are going to be talking about how do you raise funds, right? How do you get money for a movie? How do you get distribution? Where do you go to get your movie and get it out to the world? How does that happen? Who do I got to call? Well, I'm going to tell you who you got to call, how you got to go about to do it. It's not rocket science, but there is an approach to it that's very unique. So I'm excited for this fall film seminar. It's all going down on the 7th. I hope to see you there. Yeah, like I said, tickets are available on the Odeum Theater website, and they're available in person. You can go to the box office. I believe they're open, I want to say like 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. or 11 a.m. to 4 p.m., something like that. You can just walk on and grab a ticket. But I really appreciate it. I would love to see you there. And also there'll be a Q&A. So if there have been questions that you wanted to ask me that you've been hesitant about, that's a great place to go and check it out. Let's take a look at what we got going on here in the comments. Scott says, awesome opportunity. Thank you, Scott. I know you're in Europe, so I don't think you could make it, but we would love to have you there at one of the, maybe we'll do an overseas special. Alexis Taylor, what's up, Alexis? Oh, that'd be awesome. I would love to see you there. Alexis has worked on many films with me. She's a very talented, well, she does a little bit of everything. She's a Jill of all trades. You often hear Jack of all trades, but she's a Jill of all trades. Love these
this
videos. Thanks for always giving us an inside look. I like your name. Shut up.
Yeah, shut up, James. Very well, Tommy. I just wanted to let people know that your Tom DeNucci's Fall Film Camp is on the Greenwich Odeum, and I think these are a couple of words that people might have trouble spelling just because there's different ways that these could be spelled. So it's GREENWICHODEUM.com. So if you need to hear that again, watch the replay and put me in slow motion. But GreenwichOdeum.com. It's already up there, buddy. It's October 7th, 2023. Time 1 o'clock. Doors open at 12:30. Like you said, the tickets are either 25 or 50 for the VIP. And it does have a really nice breakdown. I think either you wrote this or someone from the Odeum wrote this, or someone from your team or their team. But it's a really nice little synopsis of the
Thank you, Mike.
the film camp. Yeah, it's well written there. It lays it out efficiently, but also gives you a full idea. Topics include topics included in the discussion will be secrets to screenwriting, film fundraising methods, how to get distribution, becoming castable, marketing tips for actors, advanced directing techniques, and more. So there you go.
I appreciate that, Mike, and I appreciate all of you watching along with us today on this beautiful Tuesday. Nice sunny day we got here after where I'm from, up here in the Northeast. We got a deluge dumped on us yesterday, man. It rained all day and all night. So I personally like the rainy days, but even me, I don't mind seeing a little sunshine today. So thank you for joining us. It's been a pleasure. I love talking about Don Johnson. I love hearing all your feedback. Like I said, if you haven't, pop on over, hit that subscribe button on my YouTube channel. Also, quick promotion for my new show, Rushmore, which is now available, Rushmore channel. We're talking about the top 4 everything. What's on our Mount Rushmore of, well, just about anything. But recently we've been sticking to movie stuff. We have a Rushmore of Jack Nicholson movies that we just did. And today we have it's going to be dropping later on this afternoon, a Rushmore of best TV dramas of all time. Real quick, I'll give you a couple of mine. I'm not going to give you all because you got to watch the whole show. But my first pick was The Sopranos. That's my all-time favorite TV drama. That's carved in stone on the Rushmore. And then I believe my second one, what was my second one? Well, it doesn't really matter because it's all on tape and you're going to watch it when you go over to Rushmore later on today and check out the new show. So subscribe all around. Thank you for being there. Scott, I'm sorry I'm going to miss you, man. You're going to be in the United States too. You're going to be close by. We're only about 3 hours from New
Hey,
York.
hop on a train, Scott. What are you thinking, buddy? This is your big
Scott,
chance.
you'll be there in spirit, brother, if you can't make it. We appreciate all your feedback. Thanks, guys. This show's a lot of fun for me and Mike. We love seeing you every Tuesday, and we'll see you next Tuesday. Bye, guys.